Hey, this is Jimmy Tramwell. I'm a writer with the Tulsa World. I'm joined by James Watts, my staff mate at the Tulsa World. This is the Tulsa World Scene podcast. And James, as our food writer, you generate a lot of activity, a lot of readers. Uh, it's funny how time flies. McNellie's, downtown Tulsa, turned 20 years old, and my gosh, it seemed like
Yes, they did.
it, it's hard for we know BOK Center had a huge impact on kind of the revitalization of downtown Tulsa.
Right.
Do we need to give McNellie some credit for this also and basically breathing life into downtown Tulsa?
I think, well, it's not just what I think. That's a very fair assessment. In fact, the city councilors and the mayor, this I think back when they turned 10, but
Hmm?
when it's been over 10 years, really said that McNellie's opening downtown kicked off everything because they opened in 2004. I don't think the BOK Center opened in
2008, I believe.
2008.
Hmm?
Um, the Guthrie Green wasn't a thing yet. So I mean, as Elliot Nelson told me, when he went down when he moved in and started working on there was a machine shop and a bookbinder, and everything else was abandoned in the area. This is corner of First Street and Elgin.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
what I haven't made clear to our listeners is
yeah,
Tulsa was a downtown Tulsa. You didn't go there after work, as you said in your
it
story.
wasn't.
You went home.
It was, yeah. But if you put in you well, and unless you were someone like me who had to come back downtown at night because I was covering a lot of things at the PAC.
Mhm.
But I remember, in the late '80s, early '90s, uh, having to go to the newspaper office downtown, and this is a little bit away from the neighborhood that we're talking about, but I'd call my wife and say, yes, I'm leaving now. I'm walking to my car. I'll let you
Mhm.
know when I get to the car, kind of a thing. It really wasn't that bad. I never really had any
Right.
problems with people, but it had that aura to it, and in fact, back in the '50s and through the early '70s. Uh, the corner of First and Elgin was kind of like a red light district. I mean, there were still brothels in operation there. So, um, so this was quite an undertaking to do, and for somebody who, as Elliot Nelson would say, that he really uh, this wasn't any kind of grand plan. He just, I'll make a bar.
Hmm.
Someone in college, he went to Notre Dame, and they said, write down the five things that mean the most to you, and then find a way, and then come up with a way to make money off of them.
Hmm.
And the two things on his list that he thought he could uh, make money off of were food and beer. And so he said, I'll open a bar. So that's that he came up with a business plan in college. And it took him a while to get people to back him, but finally they did. I think it was Michael Sager was his landlord for a while.
Mhm.
And one of the things that he said that was part of their appeal, excuse me, part of the appeal was that they were going to have more beer at their bar than anybody else. They had 60 varieties on tap. They had a couple of hundred varieties in cans and bottles that were available and that would change over, regularly. So that helped bring people down. Although he said it was a struggle for the first couple of years before it really took off. But now they operate 26 uh, various food and drink establishments in Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Little Rock, Arkansas. So it's yeah, but a lot of people involved with helping to revitalize downtown point to McNellie's as one of the real starting points for that effort. So, and the fact that it was a local guy, as a when Spaghetti Warehouse moved in the mid '80s into well, it's then that location's been changed over completely, but that was always seen as, well, that was going to be the big thing to bring people
Right.
downtown.
Yeah, I remember.
Never did. And so it's kind of telling that it was a local guy, and Elliot Nelson is, I believe, a fourth generation Tulsan, born and raised here, that one guy doing one thing really was the kickoff for what is now, as somebody who's lived here 50 years, a surprisingly vibrant and multi-layered, textured downtown that has pretty much something for everybody.
Yeah, so to the point of what you talked about, it was really a risk to go where he did initially with McNellie's. People did
Yeah,
not realize what a risk that was.
yeah, I think it was. Um, it was a area that had been abandoned, pretty much, and I don't know that anybody, and he said, what's it going to take to get people down here? What the one of the lines that he said was, basically what we did was we built a neighborhood pub, then we had to,
Yeah.
build a neighborhood around it. Um, he bought the building diagonally across from where McNellie's is.
Mhm.
It's a three-story structure. That became El Guapo Mexican restaurant in 2007. Uh, that It was always kind of a struggle, as they said, because it was, number one, it was a three-story restaurant. And it had a rooftop patio. And he said everybody, wanted to be on the roof,
Sure.
but you couldn't be on the roof every day of the year. And
It's
when the roof
Oklahoma,
wasn't, yeah, when the roof wasn't open, that things were pretty sparse. The menu drew a lot from the Oaxacan region of Mexico. So it wasn't a Tex-Mex kind of a place.
right?
And in 2007, the way he phrased it was, maybe it was a little too nuanced of a menu. He said you could offer it now and nobody would blink an eye, but back then people were, where's my cheese covered enchiladas or the like.
I can't imagine being a server at a three-story restaurant. I mean, you'd lose weight.
Well, they did have an elevator, but it was very small.
Mhm.
I do remember that. The funny thing is, about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, anyway, not very long ago, after they'd closed down El Guapo, they moved in a new concept called Red Light Chicken.
Mhm.
And the reason that they called it Red Light Chicken was because, as I said before, it was a red light district. And they even had on the second level a portrait from a Tulsa Tribune news photo, and I can't remember her name now. The woman who ran one of the main brothels down there called the May Rooms. They had a big portrait of her up there on the wall. But they've shuttered that now, and they moved Red Light Chicken onto 11th Street on the Route 66 in the Meadow Gold district. So it's still there. The concept is still viable, but that three-story restaurant, I don't think is ever going to quite. That's a trick that's going to be difficult to break.
I was running down the list of all the properties of Elliot. Fassler Hall, Jimmy's Chop House, the Tavern, Yokozuna, Howdy Burger, Dust Bowl, red light chicken, as you mentioned.
Bullet
Even
in
on
the
even on
alley.
the colony at one point, which I didn't realize until doing some homework. But
Yeah.
and more on the way you wrote about.
Well, yeah, he's got, but this has been a remarkably fertile time for them. They opened during the pandemic, they had two what they called ghost kitchen operations that were primarily delivery.
Hmm.
One was a kind of an American Chinese delivery. I think it was called Ghost Dragon. And then they had a deli one called Dracula Sandwich that was really, really good. Those are both closed because um, they're just not, they weren't getting the same amount of business
Right.
once things opened up. Um, but yeah, you had Bar Sarah in Utica Square. They took over running the Wild Fork, which is one of the Utica Square's longest live restaurants. Jimmy's Chop House down on Brookside, which was our best restaurant of the year last year, if I
Hmm.
remember correctly. Um, Maple Ridge Grill, I'm sorry, Maple Ridge Grocer and Bar Quigley in the middle of Maple Ridge neighborhood. Um, uh, Maple Ridge Grocer is I realize it's early on in the year, but restaurants are going to have to be pretty good to beat that out for one of the top spots for this year's best restaurant, and it's a breakfast, lunch, and dinner place. Um, Bar Quigley is a kind of a throwback to the sort of old Irish pubs you might come across in Ireland or in New York City, in the Irish areas of New York City. I mean, there's pictures of the Pope and John F. Kennedy, on the wall. So it's
Hmm.
it's a neat place. But yeah, and they're going to be opening a um, steakhouse in Jinx called City Hall Steak and Cocktail in what used to be the old City Hall building in Jinx. And this gets to another thing that he's gotten into more and more, that idea of building the neighborhood. There's a development going on in downtown Tulsa that should open some this year called Santa Fe Square.
Hmm.
Excuse me again, I'm drawing out. I remind myself this time of year, allergies pollen is a gift from God. Um, Santa Fe Square, which is a multi-use residential business, and they're going to have an Italian restaurant. They don't have a name for it yet, but there's going to be an Italian restaurant in there. But that's a concept also that he came up with back in 2004. An idea of, again, that idea of building the neighborhood. Because one of
Right.
the things that he said, I don't know that it appeared in the story that I wrote, but um, he was he says it's one thing about bringing people to Tulsa,
Hmm.
and there are a lot of programs that we've got now, like Tulsa Remote, that are designed to bring people who might otherwise not even know what Tulsa, Oklahoma is, to bring them to town and get them to stay. He said, but what's just as important and maybe even more important is keeping the people that grew up in Tulsa to stay in Tulsa. Um, I mean, I went to school with a lot of kids who, they kept saying, the minute I get my diploma, I'm leaving town. And I never had that mentality. I mean, I went to school in Norman, but I this town is just too fascinating to watch.
Hmm.
All the things that's going to go on that I couldn't imagine leaving. And I know so many people that, have gone back, have come back saying they never come back and
Yeah.
come.
Well, let's wrap up with this. I mean,
Okay.
it really bugs me that there are some restaurants I go to, some food places, I won't name them, and you can tell they just don't care if the food's any good. they know that they have customers. They know whether by location or brand name or something else, they know they're going to pay the bills. So they just really don't care if the food's good or not. Um, I would think you would agree with me that when you go to a an Elliot Nelson property, they do they place a value, a priority on the food being good.
Yes, that is a very accurate assessment. Um, I've there have been things that I've had at various McNellie group places where I've thought, I'll not get that again. But it's not because it was badly done or that it was you could tell that they didn't care. It was just that my taste didn't
Sure.
agree with what they were doing. Um, but no, I mean the quality of the product, the quality of the service, the quality of the places themselves is always high. And he credits that to um, the people that he hires and the fact that he does all that he can to, his goal is that people can start to work at McNellie's and retire from the McNellie's group and have a decent working life and a decent retirement afterwards, which is not something you hear a lot in the restaurant world. So
Sure. Well, James, thanks so much for answering my questions in the podcast. Thanks to anyone
no
else that
worries.
listens. And we will see you next time around on the Tulsa World Scene podcast.
All right, take care.
Goodbye.